everybody. Great. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for joining this afternoon's Cuppa Club with Fran Ryan and Mark Child from Oxfordshire Community Land Trust, and also delighted to have Andrew Dow from the Future Oxfordshire Partnership, who's a key supporter of Oxfordshire Community Land Trust. My name is Paul Pizzala, and I'm an investment manager at Ethex. It's been working very closely with Fran and Mark on their offer. So before we get into the details of the offer and get the opportunity to hear them all speak, there is a bit of housekeeping to do. And I'd like to let you all know that the Cuppa Club is recorded and made available to watch. And also please note that this isn't a financial promotion. And if you do need any financial advice, please talk to your advisor. So a little bit on how we run the session. The Cuppa Club usually runs for up to 45 minutes. And it's a really, really important opportunity to meet and ask questions of the directors and also Andrew on this occasion, and hear about why Oxfordshire Community Land Trust is such an impactful organisation and is doing such important work, and really how Fran, Mark and the board of directors are really aiming to achieve their goals with their key partners. So really do encourage you to please ask questions along the way and put them into the chat box, and we'll pick those up as we go. So just a little bit about the offer before Fran, Mark and Andrew introduce themselves. Sorry, excuse me. The product on offer is to fund the building of 8 affordable houses in the Oxfordshire area, and Oxfordshire Community Land Trust are raising a minimum of £500,000 in withdrawable shares and offering an interest rate of 3%. So without any further ado, I would like to hand over to Mark, Fran and Andrew to please introduce yourselves. Fran, you're on mute.
Hello, everyone. I can't actually see you, which is a real shame because I'd like to see your faces. It would give me some comfort. I'm Fran Ryan, and I'm a founder director of Oxfordshire Community Land Trust. And my background is not in housing at all. I got involved in this because I wanted to do something about the housing crisis. My background is actually as a psychologist in financial services, where I worked for 15 years in London. And since about 2000, I've continued to do that on a part-time basis, while also being a director of Oxfordshire Community Land Trust. And
Thank you, Fran.
My name is Mark Child. I'm the trust coordinator. I've worked for a number of national house builders in the past, and I'm a qualified planning lawyer. When I heard what the trusts were doing basically in my backyard, as we live in South Oxfordshire, I couldn't resist helping, essentially. So I put my legal career on hold. I'm now fully invested in the trust and their work. I'm logging in from the States on holiday, so if I look tired, I am, and it's only just getting light here, so please forgive that.
Brilliant. Thank you. Thanks, Mark, for that. And Andrew, over to you.
Yep, thank you very much, Paul. Well, good afternoon, everybody. My name's Andrew Down. I'm director of the Future Oxfordshire Partnership. For those who won't know, which is probably most of you, the Future Oxfordshire Partnership is a collection of the 6 councils in Oxfordshire, also the local enterprise partnership at the universities and 1 or 2 other bodies. We were delighted a few years back to secure a pot of government money, specifically with the idea of promoting more affordable housing across Oxfordshire. And we've been equally delighted to be able to put a chunk of that money into the particular scheme that the OCLT are promoting today, Crofts Court. So you know, we're a great financial supporter, and we're absolutely right behind what OCLT is doing.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Andrew. So if I may put the first question to Fran and Mark, please. Could you describe the problem of why affordable housing is needed so much in Oxfordshire?
Well, I can start. Many of these things you will all know already, and we refer to it in both our share offer document and also in the little video that goes with it, that Oxford is one of the most expensive places to live in the UK, and average house prices are about 15 times average earnings. And of course, it's much worse if you're on low incomes. And I read recently in the Oxford Times or Mail that actually for the first time last year, over 50% of houses in the city of Oxford were actually being rented, because people actually can't afford to buy them. And so that's the picture that's emerging in the city and beyond, where of course there are lots of second homes, and that actually puts the price up and prices local people, particularly those on low incomes, out of the market. Mark, you might have other significant things to add.
Yeah, I mean, just some of the statistics. So a recent report about the city of Oxford and the metropolitan area puts Oxford's affordability ratio as the second least affordable in the whole country. I think it's over now 15 times the average salary is an average house price. And yeah, we've been interviewing a number of people for our promotional work for the share offer, and I spoke to a couple of ladies recently who are now in temporary homeless accommodation. And for a city as recognisable as Oxford, as they explained to me, it's just unacceptable, and it shouldn't be tolerated that we have such a housing crisis both in Oxford and the wider area. And what's really not helped is council houses have been allowed to be bought and sold. And I think it's now about 40% of former council houses that have been sold are now on the private rental market. So they automatically become unaffordable. And when you put that together with diluted affordable housing products, such as shared ownership, which has its place, there really is a great vacuum of affordable rented and social rented properties in the Oxford area. And we think that our development's a really good start, especially from a community-led perspective.
Brilliant. Yeah, really good to understand the situation in Oxford. And of course, it's a nationwide issue that community land trusts and housing associations and other organizations are aiming, well, they are filling the gap. And I always think it's really interesting to find out a little bit about the story of how organizations like Oxfordshire Community Land Trust got started. Often it's the motivation to give back and do something positive, but there are lots of slips between cup and lip. So very keen to just hear a little bit about the genesis story from you, Fran, if I may.
So Oxfordshire Community Land Trust got started, got registered in 2006, and it started really from a group of us getting together following a conference in Oxford about affordable housing, and we got together and started it. And I'm going to share my screen with you to show you a really key person in the beginning of all of this, and this is Tony Crofts, who actually started one of the first community land trusts in the county, and he started Stonesfield Community Trust, which now has something like 23 homes and a post office and a nursery school in the village of Stonesfield, which is a massive buffer for that little village, because it's got its own little tiny supply of affordable housing, which helps the village kind of keep going. And Tony found the site through a Quaker connection. So he knew a woman who lived on Ensham Road, and she knew that the former back gardens of two former council-owned houses in Pinnocks Way. So I'm just going to show you this now. So this was Betty's house, this little house here. It's now replaced by a huge building with 7 two-bedroom flats in it. Betty knew about this little patch here, which was bits of the back gardens of these 2 council houses. And when the owners sold them, they kept this. And it's not huge, it's 690 metres squared. The way in is off the Ensham Road here, underneath these trees, which are still here. And Tony managed to meet the owners and do a deal with them to buy the site. And so the whole thing got started. And the reason that it's called Crofts Court is because Tony died last year of COVID in 2020. So that was a very sad time for us all. He'd moved to Bristol by then, but we have actually honoured him in the name. And so that's where the name comes from. And I'm just going to do a bit of name dropping here, because this guy was a real inspiration to us. Now, I don't know whether you can see who it is in this very grainy picture, but basically in the 1980s, Bernie Sanders was the mayor of Burlington, and he gave money to one of the first CLTs in the US, which is now the biggest CLT in the US, and has loads, it's got thousands of affordable housing and is a massive buffer against the whole problem of unaffordable housing. And Bernie inspired the people who started the Community Land Trust movement in this country, Martin Large and 2 others, who I won't go into now. But basically, he is an inspiration to us as well. And as it happens, his brother Larry lives nearby and has until very recently been a director of Oxfordshire Community Land Trust as well. So that might be enough in terms of the background. We got the site, we finally secured the site in 2012. We got planning permission in 2019. And I'm running ahead of myself here because this isn't so much the origin story as the project story. So shall I stop there, Paul?
That's brilliant background, and feel free to go on ahead. I can drop in a question. We've got a few questions coming through. So both opening speakers have made specific reference to Oxford City and or Oxford. Can we clarify this development is actually in Vale of Whitehorse District Council area? It's part funded by VW, HDC, and tenants will be from their housing list.
Would you like me to?
Did you want to do that?
Yeah, I mean, Mark, obviously you may want to chip in as well, but I'm actually here wearing 2 hats. So I introduced myself as being from the Future Oxfordshire Partnership, but I also work for Vale of Whitehorse District Council. And Future Oxfordshire Partnership has put in £600,000. Vale of Whitehorse has put in just over £300,000 of what is known as Section 106 money. So that's money from developers towards affordable housing. So between the two, it's close to £1 million of public funding that's gone in. Absolutely, Andy Crawford is right. The scheme is in Vale of Whitehorse. It's actually just outside Oxford City, so the city housing dynamic is relevant, but the scheme is in Vale of Whitehorse and will indeed be taking its first residents from the Vale of Whitehorse housing list.
Brilliant, excellent. Thank you very much.
If I could just add, Paul, the references to Oxford are really locational context. We're reaching out to social investors throughout the UK, and those people that aren't familiar with Cumnor Parish, which is directly adjacent to the city limits, has just as many housing issues. It's a very expensive area. So the reference to Oxford is to pull relevant housing statistics and average house values, which is more readily available than a specific area like Cumnor Parish. So yes, very much it's for the people on the housing list in the Vale of Whitehorse, but a lot of those people work in Oxford, so you can't really, it's difficult to distinguish when we're talking about the areas.
Okay, I've got it. So it's very location specific to the Vale of Whitehorse. However, it's within reach of Oxford where people work. Brilliant. Okay, fantastic. I mean, actually, some of the viewers or the participants are sort of cantering ahead and asking some more detailed questions. So if you're okay, we can go into a little bit of some of the detailed questions now, if you like, and then we can sort of like loop back into the questions that I have planned for you. So sort of maybe a top level question from Harold. Do you know of any other CLTs with a renting rather than buying model? And then the second part, sorry, Fran, one second. Second part of the question was, you paid £413,000 for the land. Was this the market cost? So two questions, renting versus buying and the market cost of land. And Fran's got a hand up.
Yes, so what we've got here is a rental model, but some CLTs do use a shared ownership, not a shared ownership, a shared equity model. And that is one that we might be pursuing in the future, where basically, for example, if we built these houses, we might be sharing a 50% equity to the owner, and the trust would retain the other 50%, and therefore it could be permanently affordable ownership as opposed to rental. So I don't know whether that answers your question, Harold, but please do say if it doesn't. And in terms of the 413K for the land costs, we actually paid 195 for it, but the value in terms of the accounting value was counted as the actual market value at the time. Mark, please correct me if I'm wrong about that, but I think that's what it is.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Brilliant. Okay, well, the questions are coming in thick and fast now. So, just I can try and sequence them into a bit of an order. So Sarah is asking, what rate of rent? Is it affordable rent, social rent, or something else? So that's quite an important aspect, isn't it, to your overall plans?
Yeah, so the rent will be discounted market rent, and there will be no higher than the local housing allowance, which is the housing benefit proportion of universal credit. So it will be affordable to all those people who have that maximum housing benefit from the government.
Fran.
I just want to add to that we really wanted to make rents much lower than we've had to do, but because of various things, particularly connected with borrowing costs, we've had to actually, even as recently as September, we've had to up the rent level because we had got it at 70% of market. 80% is counted as affordable by government. But of course, as we all know, it's not at all affordable. And we'd love to get down to more like social rent levels, but that's just not doable for us at the moment. So we've managed to do it at the level of local housing allowance, as Mark said.
Yeah, and maybe that's a good time to touch on why this rate is so important for the level of rents, the level of affordable rents, and why you've set the minimum at 500,000, but ideally would like to go a lot further than that.
Yes, so I mean, we're incredibly lucky to have the financial support of the Vale of Whitehorse, Future Oxfordshire Partnership, a loan from SOHA, and the main loan for the construction works from Ecology Building Society. But that construction loan is on a variable rate. And as everybody knows from the news recently, interest rates are continuing to increase. So what the point of the share offer is to make the finance more affordable and to impact the trust's work. So it doesn't just stop here, it can actually work with the Vale to look at further sites in the area and the county as a whole. So it will insulate us from further increases in interest rates if we can offset some of that market finance that's been provided by the Building Society.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks for that, Mark. I'm just going to scan the questions because there was one other to do with the risk, but maybe we'll come on to that a little bit later. So if I just, sorry, Fran, you've got your hand up. Well, you're on mute. You're on mute, Fran.
Sorry, I just want to come back to Harold because actually he has clarified that he wants to know about other rental models. And yes, there are other CLTs that use rental models. And I'm really sorry, Harold, that I can't remember who they are. And I'm going to have to come back to you on that. But yes, there are.
Brilliant. And very happy to help connect Harold with Fran or Mark to answer that question. But if we sort of weave our way back into the running order, I wanted to ask Fran again to give some colour on how you manage the organisation, i.e. who the board of directors are, how you selected them, and to talk a little bit about the planning of the development, please. That would be great to hear. You're on mute, Fran.
So I'm just, perhaps I should start talking about the board of directors. I mean, we are all volunteers, which I think, apart from Mark, who we've been lucky enough to have funding to fund a coordinator. And actually, we really desperately need to make sure we continue to find funding to do that, which has nothing to do with the share offer. But we're actually effectively running a small development organisation, as Mark frequently reminds me, and we're doing it on an absolute shoestring. And we're really lucky that we've got somebody like Mark, because he's got both legal and development experience behind him. On the board, we've got a number of people. I'm not going to go through the board, because you can all do that both on our website and also in the share offer document. But basically, we've got a wide spread of interests on the board. Perhaps most notably is our chair, Bob, who's written extensively about the housing market and particularly about land and getting access to land. We've also got several people with a lot of Homes England and Housing Association experience, Sue Brownhill and Alison Matthias. And then almost everyone on the board is completely passionate about the whole business of trying to provide permanently affordable housing, because we all think it's the only way to solve the housing crisis. It's no good building more houses like we've just built in Wolvercott or anywhere, because they're not affordable. And the developers always use their viability arguments to reduce the affordability requirement as low as possible. And in some cases, they manage to get away with not doing it at all. And so we're very passionate about this particular model, a permanent affordability. It's no good just building affordable houses, because as soon as you sell one, they become unaffordable. And there was another question in there about right to buy and right to acquire.
Yes, that's brilliant point to pick time to pick that up.
So CLTs are exempt from right to buy at the moment, which is fantastic. But we do know that the government could change that just like that, with a new bill. But right now, we're safe. Right to acquire, because we've taken public money, we will have to give our residents right to acquire. But the discount they get with right to acquire is tiny. And we therefore judge that to be a fairly low probability, to have a fairly low probability of happening. It could happen, and if it does happen, if we could manage one, perhaps, then two would really put us under some strain. But we've thought about that and we've looked at that. We are just, I think, really hoping that doesn't happen, and it's very, very unlikely to happen because of the level of discount that's so low with right to acquire. And I hope that answers the question. That's how we're proceeding right now, because if we, honestly, we'll never do anything if we actually think all of these things are going to materialize, which I'm sure they won't.
Yeah, so it's quite a low probability event, actually, in terms of a new bill being written, which would fly in the face of the housing crisis anyway. And then, unfortunately, many of your tenants wouldn't be able to afford to buy houses either. So from that point of view, it's a relatively low likelihood outcome, which answers that question. So Fran, thank you very much. I could understand that you've got a really wide spread of expertise, relevant expertise on the board of directors. And I'm going to sort of shift into the question about partnerships, because you've got some brilliant partners on the project. And of course, we all know that building houses like this, it is complex and you need really good partners. So I just wonder if you could tell us a little bit well, this is for Mark and Andrew, sorry, how you've gone about selecting and working with your partners to achieve your goals. Mark, that's Mark and Andrew.
Well, I can jump in first before Andrew gives some background just on the Future Oxfordshire Partnership and the Vale's involvement. But essentially, it was a leap into the unknown to some extent by the public authorities. They hadn't worked with the trust before. It was somewhat of an unknown entity. But really, that faith has been paid back, and we work really, really well with the Vale of Whitehorse. We have regular update meetings, site meetings, and the programme for the construction works is on schedule. We've dealt with all of the issues arising to date, and it's really given both parties a lot of confidence in moving forward. Even to the point where we had a recent meeting with the Vale and some of their senior team, and we're going to be looking at some more sites in the area because they really feel confident that the composition and skills of the board are such that they're in good hands in terms of using public money effectively and really making a difference to community-led homes in the Vale district.
So if I just sort of take it on from there, I think probably two different things to say on this. One is to say that the provision of affordable housing is a very clear priority for Vale of Whitehorse District Council. I mean, it's a priority for many councils, but it's very clearly stated at the Vale. And as Fran so articulately explained earlier, affordable housing is in short supply in Oxfordshire. The affordability is very low, and even against the formal definition of 80% of market rents, that still doesn't make housing necessarily truly affordable. So there was a very clear overlap in interest between the Vale Council's priorities and the scheme that OCLT was bringing forward, and so securing political support was really relatively simple, I guess. I think the difficulty really was how to get it off the ground, because for a community land trust like OCLT, albeit one established several years ago, as Fran explained, securing the funding to build your first scheme is a real challenge. It's a bit of a catch-22. How can you get somebody to grant or lend you money until you have an established track record? But then how do you establish a track record if nobody will give you any money to build a scheme? And so it was a little bit of a step of faith from the Future Oxfordshire Partnership, but we had this government money available for affordable housing, subject to lots of checks and balances and assurances. And we needed, for example, OCLT to register as a provider of social housing in order to make the grant available. But OCLT has done everything that we asked of them, and we're thrilled to see the building progress on site. It's going up fantastically fast.
Brilliant, excellent, really good answer. Thanks for that, Andrew. And of course, you're working with other organisations that do the management of the housing, so maybe it's just sort of important to note that the board of directors provide the governance structure, the relationships, the planning, but they're not sort of operationally, doing the day-to-day work of managing the house, the tenants themselves. And maybe we can sort of come on to that, because I've had a great question from Ian, who says, we've got a multi-pronged cost of living crisis. So it's not only just houses, it's fuel and food. And he goes on to ask, so to minimise the cost of heating and maximise resident comfort, what are you doing in the build quality to answer those other, I suppose, they're environmental and cost of living questions? And maybe if we frame it in terms of the design and the build in terms of its quality and sustainability. And I'm just going to throw in another question. Can you just really interested to hear about some of the community aspects, the solar, how to create good neighborhoods? I think that's a really important aspect of what you're doing as well. So just to rephrase that question, how does the design and the quality of the build answer questions of sustainability and other affordability issues? And that's for Fran and Mark. But Andrew, feel free to chip in.
Yeah, so I think it's a really good question, because it isn't just about rents, albeit they're significant in Oxford and Oxfordshire. But a couple of aspects for the design. One was important for providing fully electric homes, and each home will have its own individual solar supply. So that's really important to us, because as everybody knows, the cost of heating homes is getting to really unaffordable levels, just as rent is. So that was something we were really keen to secure. Secondly, the homes are insulated to a very high degree. We weren't able to design them to passive house standards, which is just another example of just how difficult it is to acquire land affordably and provide affordable homes when you're trying to tick all of these environmental boxes. But it is highly insulated. One of the key aspects to the development from a community point of view is we're going to be developing a community management cooperative for the tenants that's been established and incorporated. And what we'll be doing shortly is running a training program so that prospective tenants will be trained on various aspects of property management, so they can take real ownership in support from SOHA, who'll be doing some of the larger management aspects of the property. But what we want to do is develop a tenant management cooperative that really teaches and gives skills that can be marketed in the labour market to the tenants. And anecdotally, that's shown to create resilience amongst neighbours, to create a really tight-knit community. And I think we've all experienced in the last couple of years how important it is to have really good, positive neighbourly relations. So we're really excited that that's a fundamental part of this development, that people support one another, create instant neighbours, if you will, and other aspects like creating a car club that the tenants can take forward, and sharing resources is really important to the trust.
Brilliant, thank you, Mark. That's a really good answer. Fran, did you have anything to say on that, or are you happy to?
I think Mark's covered it, but I do want to say that the cooperative aspect of this has been there from the very start. And in fact, it's written into the Section 106 as well, that actually part of the deal with building these homes is not only that they're available for people from Vale of Whitehorse Housing Register, they have to have a local connection, and also they have to be ready and able to join a co-op. Now, that is quite a departure for the local authority to get involved in that. And I think we're all very excited and really looking forward to figuring out how to make this work. It's unknown for the local authorities. Even housing associations very often don't, there's very few housing associations that will use this approach with their tenants. And there are 2 existing small housing co-ops in Oxford, and we will be able to draw on some of their experience, but that's it's quite a different model, and they're not those co-ops are owned by the people who live in them, so it's a bit different. Okay. But the co-op thing is potentially it's quite a novel thing, I think, is as part of this development.
Yeah, I see. So it's as Andrew was explaining, it's a way to encourage and incentivize neighborliness, which is so important in creating thriving communities. Fran?
There's one other thing I forgot to say. There's a car club, because that's quite a good way of also keeping costs down. In response to Ian's question, the car club, people will be, required to participate in that. We will have to work out the details of that with them, but I think that's another way where people will be dealing with, both their costs, the costs issue, and also the whole sustainability issue of not driving too much.
Yep. Brilliant, great answer. Thank you for that, Fran. Andrew, I just wonder if you have anything to say about the community aspect, because I imagine that's something, sounds like it's a leading edge for you, but perhaps something that is quite close to your heart also.
Probably not much to add, but to say that the scheme has strong support from the ward councillors, and their role is to represent the community. So you know, very clearly a lot of strengths there. The scheme's in a sustainable location. It's on bus routes, and so you know, that lends itself to not excessive use of cars as well. And as you saw from the aerial shots that Fran was showing earlier, it's in the middle. It's surrounded by housing, and you know, the aspiration must surely be that this becomes not just its own little community of 8 units, but a part of the bigger surrounding community.
Yeah, brilliant. Good point. Thank you for that. Okay, so we're sort of drawing towards a close. I'd like to say that, you know, the offer has got off to a very good start. So around about 15% raised already, coming into its second week, which is that's a very good start actually for an offer. So, you know, well done to everybody for the campaigning that's gone behind that. We're also likely to receive match funding, taking the offer up to 20% or £100,000 next week. So that's always useful and motivating for the crowd. Fran, I noticed you've got your hand up and you're on mute.
There's a question about booster fund, and I think that's which I don't think we answered, and I think we are hoping to get an extra input. We don't know how much for. Mark might know, but we will be applying to the booster fund to get an extra boost in January.
Brilliant. I think Mark's nodding in agreement on that one.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, that's obviously in addition to what you're applying for, Paul, and it's just really important that all these different streams are contacted and encouraged to support us, because it's such a novel and unique development, and it's got so much private and public support. We just need to, you know, everybody to do whatever they can to make this, you know, a flagship development. And something that the trust is really keen to do is almost have like a traveling roadshow when this is complete, to really go around the country to communities who are looking to do something like this themselves, to new and existing community land trusts, to say, this is how we've managed to achieve it. This is what you can do. Learn from, you know, some of our teething problems at the start, and, you know, really make this a concept which can spring up in, you know, many neighbourhoods around the country. So that's really exciting for us.
Brilliant. Thanks, Mark. Thanks for that. So I think we've touched on why the offer is so important in helping with the cost of capital of the overall build, and allowing you to give more affordable rents, which is absolutely key and critical. I think it's fair to say that the construction is quite a way through already. I think you showed some pictures of that, Fran. So it's real, it's in the ground, it's happening. And I think it's due for completion in May 2023, if my memory serves me correctly. And so, you know, we're sort of aiming to close the offer in February and reach that. Got some pictures here coming from Fran, and reach that £500,000 minimum target. So that's what we're gunning for. And finally, I'd like to ask Fran to kind of sum up for us and you know, give a call to action, if I may. And you're on mute, Fran.
Okay. So I'm in this business because I feel concerned about the numbers of people who don't have an affordable place to live. And it's not just in Oxford and county, it's probably in most big cities all over the world. There's an affordability crisis. And we need to find ways of solving that particular problem, because it's affecting so many people. And if you don't have a decent place to live, that means you're working God knows how many hours a week just to keep body and soul together, if you're lucky enough to even have a place to actually put your head down. And you don't have time for your children, you don't have time for your family, there's no time, because you're working 80+ hours a week. So I'm in this business because I actually really believe that this model is a way of solving the housing crisis. The only way to solve it is to take houses and land out of the market, which of course council houses used to do, but now we don't do that anymore. So we need to replace that with something that is more stable and secure, and we need to scale it up. This is tiny, as Deborah says in the little film promoting this share offer. This is a tiny drop in the ocean, but actually it's not that difficult to understand. And if we could scale it up, how wonderful would that be for the whole sustainability of our county? And affordable housing is a sustainability issue, because if you can't afford to live near where you work, you're driving in. That's why we got 40,000 people commuting into Oxford City every day, because they can't afford to live there. So we need to have people being able to afford to live near where they work. All of those people who keep the wheels on the bus, that's not the right way to say it, but the people who keep the things going, the transport people, the carers, the retail staff, the hospitality staff. We're all good at thinking about teachers and doctors and nurses, but there's all these other people who we never see. We don't think about them, and they're the people that I do care about. And as a baby boomer, I'm one of the people who's really benefited from the unearned equity that I've acquired in my house, that I bought for 84,000 in 1996 actually, and it's now worth 800,000. And that's not right either. Now I'm not cash rich, but actually I want to share some of that unearned equity and contribute to the Community Land Trust movement. So I'm asking anybody out there who can afford £250 to buy shares for that value. And if you can afford more, that would be an amazing contribution to the little effort that we're making. And okay, it's not a massive return. 3% is not, maybe you can get more elsewhere, but think about the social return. The social return is why this is important. So I think I'll stop there, otherwise I'll go on forever.
That was brilliant, very, very eloquent and well put. And, brilliant to see the passion, the organisation, the partnerships coming together in this project. So really, really very, very many thanks to Fran and to Mark and to Andrew. And also very, very thanks to the audience for taking part. Obviously, this doesn't happen without you. So brilliant that you're here. Just to say, the offer is open to the end of Feb. We'll be sending updates, and you can see how the offer is progressing on Ethex's website. So thanks once again from me for your time to everybody, and just over to the panelists to say thank you and goodbye too. So it's your opportunity.
Thanks for hosting us, Paul. It's great that you're behind this. It gives us a lot of confidence and credibility, and thanks for everybody for logging in and asking those important questions.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. One tiny closing remark. Fran said 8 units is a drop in the ocean. It's tiny. Well, that's true, but everybody needs one home, so this will make a difference to 8 households, and that's worth doing.
That's a lovely thing to say, Andrew. Thank you. And thank you to you, Mark, for getting up early to do this call from America, and to Ethex for hosting it. Thank you all. And thanks to all of you out there, and please do invest.
Brilliant. That's excellent. Thank you so much, everybody. And with that, we'll close the session. Thank you.